Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, September 20th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a high of 86.2 degrees Fahrenheit, with the low dropping to 68.6 degrees. It looks like a pleasant day, perhaps a good time to enjoy some of that late September sunshine before the temperatures begin their autumn descent. Coming up, we'll explore what the killing of Kirk reveals about the concerning state of political violence in the United States. We'll also delve into how California is managing its ambitious climate objectives while ensuring a stable and reliable energy supply for its diverse population. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We begin this morning with the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, an event that has ignited a fervent national discussion about escalating political violence in the United States. For a closer look, we turn to our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, this is a truly chilling story, isn't it?
It certainly is, Grace. Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old founder of the right-wing student organization Turning Point USA, was fatally shot on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. He was speaking at an outdoor Prove Me Wrong debate when he was struck by a single bullet fired from a roof. Chillingly, he was responding to a question about mass shootings when he was killed, according to reporting from Democracy Now! And KPFA. Kirk was known for organizing conservative youth, often opposing immigration and civil rights for LGBTQ individuals, people of color, and women. Journalist Jeff Charlotte noted Kirk's big issue was singular. It was whiteness, as democracynow.org highlighted.
A shocking end to a controversial career. And we understand an arrest was made swiftly?
That's right, Grace. Just 2 days after the assassination, on September 12, 2025, law enforcement announced the arrest of 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Robinson has since been formally charged with aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, and counts of obstruction of justice and witness tampering, as detailed by CBS News and The Guardian.
What's next for Robinson in the legal process?
According to Al Jazeera and Fox News, on September 16, 2025, Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray announced prosecutors intend to seek the death penalty. They cite aggravating factors like targeting Kirk due to political beliefs and the shooting occurring in the presence of children. Robinson made his initial virtual court appearance on September 16th, ruled indigent, and will be appointed an attorney. He is held without bail, and his next court appearance, a waiver hearing, is scheduled for September 29th, 2025, at 10 a.m. local time, just 9 days from today.
The pursuit of the death penalty underscores the seriousness of these charges. What evidence and alleged motive have emerged?
Court documents, cited by PBS and the Los Angeles Times, reveal Robinson confessed to his romantic partner via text messages after the shooting, stating, "I had enough of his hatred." He also allegedly left a note for his partner, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." DNA evidence consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle trigger, and prosecutors allege he attempted to obstruct justice. While Utah Governor Spencer Cox initially suggested a broader, leftist ideology, specific evidence points to Kirk's anti-transgender views as a significant factor. Robinson's mother told investigators her son had, quote, become more pro-gay and trans rights-oriented. Crucially, Kirk was shot moments after asserting that too many trans individuals had committed mass shootings in the U.S., as reported by The Washington Post. It's also confirmed, per The Guardian and Al Jazeera, that Robinson's romantic partner is transgender and has cooperated.
So, a deeply personal and ideological motive potentially fueled this attack. How is this event being viewed in the broader context of political violence?
Journalist Jeff Charlotte described this as a, quote, moment of great peril, arguing that extreme reactions are, quote, accelerants poured on an already burning fire, as he told Democracy Now! Utah Governor Spencer Cox called Kirk's killing a, quote, political assassination, an attack on all of us. President Donald Trump quickly praised Kirk as, quote, and even legendary, later calling him a quote for truth and freedom and blaming the radical left. This sentiment was echoed by Mehdi Hasan and Chris Hedges on Democracy Now! And KPFA, who discussed Trump weaponizing Kirk's death. This assassination has undeniably widened our political chasm, Grace. While many public figures have condemned the act, a House resolution honoring Kirk faced significant Democratic opposition, highlighting the stark divisions and the volatile political temperature in the nation.
A truly sobering report, Ethan, painting a clear picture of the facts and the fraught political atmosphere we currently face. Thank you for piecing that together for us.
My pleasure, Grace.
We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more developing news. Welcome back to your morning news. Yesterday, California's Governor Gavin Newsom signed a sweeping package of climate and energy policies. It is an overhaul that was negotiated right down to the wire in the final legislative days. This legislation aims to tackle the state's ambitious climate goals while also trying to keep energy costs in check. For more on this, we turn to our reporter Chloe, who's been following the details. Chloe, this package sounds like a real balancing act. What's the big picture here?
Grace, it absolutely is a complex balancing act, or perhaps a balancing actition. According to reporting from Cal Matters and LAist, Governor Newsom himself described it as a, quote, practical application rather than purely ideological, aiming to manifest California's environmental ideals without, quote, laying tracks over folks. He signed a massive comprehensive package of climate and energy policies yesterday, September 19, 2025, after intense lobbying.
Laying tracks over folks sounds like he's trying to prevent burdens on everyday Californians. So let's dig into some of the specific elements. One of the key provisions involves the extension of the state's cap-and-trade program. Can you explain what that is and what this extension entails?
Certainly, Grace. The cap-and-trade program, now rebranded as Cap and Invest, is essentially a system where a limit, or quote, cap, is set on the total amount of greenhouse gases that can be emitted. Companies then buy or trade allowances to emit a certain amount. The idea is to create a financial incentive to reduce pollution. This program, which has been pricing carbon emissions since 2013, has been largely extended through 2045, according to Cal Matters and Lost Coast Outpost. The revenue from this, projected to be up to $60 billion, will be funneled into some critical areas.
$60 billion? That's a significant sum. Where will that money go? And how will it impact Californians directly?
A substantial portion, specifically $1 billion annually, is earmarked for the state's high-speed rail project, with another $800 million dedicated to affordable housing. There is also $250 million slated for community air protection programs, as capradio.org has reported. Crucially, news from thestates.com and sfchronicle.com confirm that a large chunk will go towards lowering utility bills for households and small businesses through electricity rebates and credits, which should offer some financial relief.
That sounds like a positive for many, but I understand there's some significant pushback on the cap-and-trade extension, particularly from environmental justice advocates. What are their concerns?
You're absolutely right, Grace. While mainstream environmental groups generally view the extension positively, environmental justice, or EJ, advocates are deeply disappointed. Groups like the California Environmental Justice Alliance, or CEJA, argue that the largely unchanged program perpetuates a, quote, pay-to-pollute system. As CEJA.org and GVWire.com have stated, they believe it allows large polluters, often situated near vulnerable, low-income communities, to continue emitting greenhouse gases and other co-pollutants by simply purchasing allowances or offsets, rather than significantly reducing emissions at their source.
So they feel it doesn't adequately protect those communities already disproportionately affected by pollution?
Exactly. They've accused state leaders of, quote, gutting basic public health and safety protections, and contend the extension institutionalizes inequality in California's climate policy. according to news from thestates.com and the Los Angeles Times. Their interests, they say, were sidelined during regulatory decisions. In a partial nod to these concerns, Newsom did sign a separate bill creating a state fund to monitor pollution mitigation in disadvantaged communities, as reported by LAist.
I see. Shifting gears, another controversial element of this package is a boost in domestic oil drilling. This seems to go against the grain of the state's climate goals. What's the rationale behind this move? And what's the reaction been?
It's definitely a head-scratcher for many, Grace, especially given Governor Newsom's previous stance against the oil industry. This measure approves a long-delayed environmental impact report for new wells, particularly in Kern County, potentially streamlining permits for up to 2,000 new oil wells annually through 2036. CalMatters and Lost Coast Outpost explain that the governor's stated rationale is to stabilize fuel supply and address potential price spikes due to planned refinery closures.
That sounds like Hez trying to keep a lid on gas prices. But will more crude oil actually solve that problem?
That's the burning question, Grace, and experts are highly skeptical. The problem isn't a lack of crude oil. It's a lack of new refining capacity for California's special low-carbon blend of gasoline, often called CARBOB. The Sacramento Bee and San Francisco Chronicle have reported that the Valero refinery in Benicia is slated to cease operations by April 2026, which is just 193 days from now, and the Phillips 66 refinery in Wilmington began winding down earlier this month and is expected to permanently close by October 2025, only 11 days away. These closures will reduce California's overall refining capacity by 17% to 20%. So more crude oil doesn't help if we can't refine it here for our specific fuel. Earth Justice and other environmental groups have condemned this as a, quote, giveaway to the oil industry.
That's a very important distinction that many might not realize. So, these refinery closures are happening, and this package doesn't prevent them. What are the projected consequences of these unaddressed closures?
The consequences are quite dire, Grace. The California Energy Commission, or CEC, projects that the Valero Benicia closure alone could trigger gasoline price increases of 50 to 75 cents per gallon statewide, with diesel potentially spiking by more than $1 per gallon. Some analyses, as Forbes.com has reported, even warn of gas prices potentially reaching over $8 per gallon if both major refineries close. This would disproportionately impact our agricultural and transportation sectors, as well as working-class communities.
And what about jobs and the local economies?
The impact there is equally severe. The Valero refinery in Benicia, for instance, is the city's largest employer, set to displace around 400 workers. The Phillips 66 closure means layoffs for 600 direct workers, with hundreds more indirect jobs at risk, according to CBS News and Forbes.com. Historically, many laid-off refinery workers struggle to find new employment at comparable wages. On a local fiscal level, Benicia faces a major economic blow, as the Valero refinery contributes $10 million to $12 million annually, about 20% of the city's budget, meaning cuts to city programs and staff.
Those are profound challenges. So with all this, how can Governor Newsom describe this as a post approach?
That's the crucial question, Grace. From the administration's perspective, the balance seems to come from its dual strategy accelerating the transition to clean energy through cap and invest revenues and clean energy initiatives, and NEV using measures like increased in-state oil production and electricity rebates to mitigate immediate cost pressures. However, it's important to note that this balance doesn't extend to preventing the economic fallout from refinery closures or directly providing a transition plan for affected workers and communities, as noted by news from thestates.com and courthousenews.com.
And what about the other measures, like the Western Regional Electricity Market and wildfire costs?
Those are indeed more positively received aspects. The legislation signed will allow California to establish a Western regional energy market, enabling the state to trade electricity with neighboring states. Proponents, including mainstream environmental groups, believe this will lower prices by facilitating the sale of excess clean energy and importing power during peak demand, thereby enhancing grid reliability and affordability, as confirmed by the San Francisco Chronicle. Another bill establishes a public financing system for new power lines to lower transmission infrastructure costs for customers and prevent some utility wildfire mitigation costs from being passed on. It also replenishes the state's wildfire fund by $18 billion, paid by shareholders and ratepayers over the next decade, to compensate victims and requires utilities to invest in hardening their equipment, according to courthousenews.com.
Chloe, thank you for drilling down into the details of this complex package. It truly is a delicate tightrope walk for California's future.
My pleasure, Grace.
We appreciate you shedding light on all of this for us. Here are some other headlines. A new book is trying to engineer a new understanding of the U.S.-China relationship, arguing it's a battle between a lawyerly society and an engineering state. In Breakneck, author Dan Wang suggests America's elite, dominated by lawyers, has created a system bogged down in litigation and process. He points to infrastructure as proof, noting New York City hasn't approved a major subway expansion since 2007. In contrast, China's leadership, heavy with engineers, prioritizes building. The city of Wuhan, for example, built nearly 100 miles of new subway lines in just 4 years. However, Wang is critical of the human cost of China's approach, citing brutal social engineering policies like zero COVID and widespread surveillance. He ultimately calls for mutual learning, suggesting the U.S. could use more of its old engineering muscle, while China desperately needs to incorporate more legal safeguards for human dignity. Across the pond, it seems the quote, special relationship is facing a polarizing figure. As Donald Trump prepares for a second state visit, recent surveys show around 2/3 of Britons hold an unfavorable opinion of him. A majority believes his presidency has had a negative impact on the UK and will harm global security. Despite this, there's a pragmatic streak, with a plurality of Britons saying their prime minister should prioritize a good working relationship with the administration. However, that doesn't extend to rolling out the red carpet. Nearly half the public thinks inviting him for another state visit was the wrong call. When asked to describe him, the top words chosen by Britons were idiot and dangerous. In California, public employee unions are investing heavily in some low-profile elections with high-stakes returns. They're pouring unprecedented amounts of money into races for the Board of CalPERS, the nation's largest public pension fund. With over $450 billion in assets, the board's decisions on investment strategies directly impact the retirement and healthcare benefits of 2 million public workers. Unions are backing candidates they believe will protect stable, long-term growth. Historically low voter turnout in these elections means that the union's ability to mobilize members can have an outsized influence on who governs this massive fund. A complex Supreme Court ruling has thrown billions of dollars in California research grants into a state of legal limbo. The issue began when the Trump administration terminated numerous federal grants, many tied to diversity initiatives. University of California researchers sued and won a preliminary injunction. But the Supreme Court has now ruled that these legal disputes must be heard in the little-known U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Legal experts say this is a tougher venue for the researchers, as the court can award money but cannot issue broad injunctions to stop the government from continuing a policy. The decision leaves the future uncertain for at least $14 billion in research funding nationwide, affecting projects on everything from cancer treatment to Parkinson's disease. And finally, a remote hospital in California's Eastern Sierra is on life support. The Southern Inyo Healthcare District, a lifeline for the community of Lone Pine, reports it has just days of cash left. Officials are making an urgent plea for a $3 million state bailout to avoid a shutdown. The closure of the critical access hospital would create a healthcare desert, affecting not only local residents but also the 1.5 million tourists who visit nearby Mount Whitney and Death Valley each year. A closure would also be an economic catastrophe for the small town. The crisis highlights the fragility of rural healthcare, as the community now waits to see if state intervention will arrive in time. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.